My friend, welcome to the world's best kept secret podcast, the podcast that shows spiritual entrepreneurs how to clarify their message and then how to turn that clarity into revenue. I'm your host, Prima Joe, a mentor and message expert since 2020. Whether you seek to simply clarify your message or feel ready to monetize your brilliance, this is your safe space for actionable guidance and practical tools on how to turn your woo into predictable revenue. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome to this conversation, and today we're going to talk about parenting, we're going to talk about children, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts, we're going to talk about programming and all the things. I have an expert here. I have nothing about parenting myself. I only remember that if my dad said something had to be done, it had to be done. I didn't think that I always had these carpets and platform where I could say, but dad, if dad said this, it was that. And my mom was worse because my mom didn't even say. She would just look at you and you would just know what she's trying to say. Like, my mom didn't even have like the patience to say, what are you doing? She would just sit, look at you, and you'd be like, uh-oh, this looks like trouble. So today I am going to hopefully unlearn some of the parenting stuff that I might have opted from my parents, and using Philippa's expertise, I'm going to learn more, and hopefully as a parent to be, I plan to be a parent. I've been married for 3 years. I plan to be a mother, that I will take this, what she's teaching, and step into parenting more intentionally, because I am a conscious human now, and I know that I don't have to carry my grandmother's ways of doing things and my mother's and father's way of doing things. But I really haven't consciously looked at parenting. I think it's one of those things that you're pregnant and you think, oh my God, what does parenting look like for me? I have the desire, but I don't know if I've consciously sat down and said, this is the kind of parent I want to show up as. This is like, I don't know. Like, I think it's one of those things which happens, and then you're like, oh, I guess I'm a parent. So today we're going to sit and talk about all things parenting, and with me is an expert called Philippa Scott, who is really a dedicated professional in the field of birth and parenting. She's been doing this for over 20 years. She's a certified doula. She's a childbirth educator. And if you need anything, family coach, if you need anything to do with families and children and parenting, I think we have the right person in our hands here. What I want to do is pass on the mic to Philippa and let her tell us more about her work, because I could sit here and read her bio, which is 2 pages, or I could just give her the floor and she could just jump in and tell us more. Philippa, welcome to the show. I am so honored that you said yes to coming to the show.
Thank you, Prima. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to go straight to your journey of how you started all of this up to this point. Scan for us through the 20 years and kind of give us what we need to know in this moment to really understand how you came to be this person that is helping people through an area that I think really shapes the world, because how we parented is how we parent, and it moves around, and before you know it, your grandfather is running the show. So walk me through that to a point where we're really breaking that pattern, because I really love this. I love what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, so it started for me with the pregnancy of my first daughter, which ended in a reasonably traumatic birth experience, a move about 14 hours away from my own parents, and a huge journey of learning, a real time of discovering what I wasn't okay with in that experience, I journeyed through the decisions that I'd made, who I'd given my power to, and I became a doula at that time. And I really spent a long time campaigning for other women. I had 3 more daughters in the next few years. So there's 6.5 years from my first to my last. And once I'd learnt all the things I needed to about giving birth and breastfeeding and wearing my baby and doing all of the things that really held my baby close for those first few years, I thought I was on the right path. I thought, okay, I've done those first few years really well, and I'm good at this, and I know how to do all this, and I'm nailing it. And so I sailed through that, and then I went back to work. And so when my youngest was 3 and my eldest was 10, I went back to work, and I became more disconnected from my children. And I didn't really understand what was happening at the time. I didn't understand, as my children started to go through primary school, just how much of my own parents was coming through in what I was saying and how I was responding to behavior. And it wasn't until my eldest daughter was 16 that I really crashed and burned. And it was in that year that I was on my third teenage daughter at that point, and she was having some huge issues at school. And I didn't know, but in fact, all of my children are neurodivergent. And so there was a really big learning curve that happened around that. But more than anything, my whole system crashed. It said, oh, well, we have an answer now. We don't have to keep fighting. We don't have to keep striving. Now we just need to learn how to deal with this. And I ended up with adrenal fatigue. And as a result of that adrenal fatigue, I sought help from my GP, who said, you just need 3 months off work because you need to rest. And I said, well, I can't afford to do that. So I went looking for another solution. That solution led me to TRTP, the Richards Trauma Process, which is an incredible therapy process. And I did that. And within 2 weeks, I had my life back. And it wasn't long after that I actually went to work for Judith Richards. I learned how to do the process, and I've been doing that with people ever since. But as a result of the learning that I did in that process and in learning how to do that process, I came to understand just how crucial the unconscious core beliefs we have are, how much they impact the patterns in our life, how much they impact what kind of experiences we have, and how that impacts how we parent. And so as I started to unravel what I was seeing at the other end with clients, I began to look at, okay, what do we need to do differently here in order to be able to show up and parent in a way that means that our children aren't doing the work that we're doing? So how do we break the cycle for real? And not just about being conscious, but how do we unconsciously have a different script? Because, when everything's going bad, our entire system reverts to our primal brain, and we revert to what is ingrained in our primal nervous system, which is what we've picked up from 0 to 7. And I can tell you, when you are sleep deprived and you've got kids yelling at you, and if somebody's hungry and somebody's, vomiting and all the things are happening, it's not your conscious brain, your neocortex, that's going to respond to the child who's tapping you on the shoulder saying, mum, 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 mum. It's your primal brain that's going to respond to that. And so if what your primal brain has in it is crap, then crap is going to come out at your children. So the focus was then on, well, how do we actually change what's in that unconscious, and how do we parent in it with intention, parent intention, and parent from relationship rather than behavior? And so I went on a big learning journey, and that's led me to create several courses, as well as some membership spaces, and to be doing the coaching work that I do.
What I'm picking up from your story, how you're sharing this work, is that there is parenting by default. There's been a generation of parenting down your trajectory. And in this moment, it's like you have an operating system as a parent that you didn't even create. You're walking, you're functioning. But there's people who've never sat down to ask, but like, who told me that parenting had to look like this? Like, why do I do things like this? I have seen
Yes.
people who literally showed up and did things like the way their mom did. And I always ask my friends, like, why do you do that? It's like, well, mom did that. I'm like, why do you have to parent the way your mom did? But I don't think that a lot of people sit down to go, have I put intent behind how I'm showing up? Is this how I want to show up? Who built this system? So what I'm getting is that you can parent, you can just fall into parenting. You have a child, and therefore everyone expects you to have the abilities. Like, there was someone who was explaining that you go to the hospital, you have a child, everyone claps for you, they wrap the baby in your arms, and they go, good luck. And somehow you're supposed to just magically know how to parent a child. And I think it was interesting because that's exactly what happened. You're a parent, good luck, and enjoy the journey. But like, sometimes you have no idea other than to fall back to, okay, this is how I was brought up, and I have no idea why, and maybe this is why. So what is wrong with that system of, people survived before you, your parents survived, you, Philippa, survived. What is wrong with that system of passing on the wisdom to the next generation? Like, why do we have to change it? What's wrong with that way of parenting? Because we're still alive and we're pretty responsible. So, like, why are we trying to change that system? What's wrong with the system?
So there's nothing inherently wrong with the system of passing down wisdom and parenting the way we were parented. The problem comes when the way we were parented wasn't didn't allow us to be truly ourselves. So if we were parented by somebody who chose to parent relationship, parent intention, as opposed to parenting behavior, then go ahead, keep going, no problem. But if instead what you were parented with was statements like, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. Or, things that squashed us. So often children are told, so let's just take timeouts for an example, right? A lot of parents have used timeouts to discipline their children, right? So the child is doing something wrong and we send them to a naughty corner or to the stairs or to their room or to the bathroom to think about what they've done. And we're really just what we're saying to them in that moment, because often we're doing this with 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and we're saying your behavior and your inability to control your emotions means I have to remove you from me. You and I can't be in the same state. You have to deal with that alone, and you need to figure out your own stuff. And then we expect them to come back to us fully regulated and able to control their behavior. So we've sent them away for their behavior, not actually intentionally looking into why that behavior happened and whether, because most behavior is actually a cry for help. Most poor behavior, or what we would call bad behavior, is actually a cry for help. It's an I don't know how to deal with what I'm feeling right now. So if a child has a tantrum because they want the chocolate and you're not giving them the chocolate because it's 5 minutes to dinner and they need to eat some veggies, that's an appropriate thing to do. It's not that that's a bad thing to do, to say, no, no chocolate now, you can wait and have chocolate later. But the child doesn't actually have a way of dealing with that other than to have a tantrum, because they're still learning how to regulate their emotions. And there are plenty of adults out there who have big tantrums because they can't get in the right line when they're driving down the highway. And that road rage is a thing, right? That's not toddlers, that's adults. There's loads of adults out there who cannot regulate their own emotions, and they're not able to teach how to regulate emotions to their children. So what we have is this disconnect and this send away. We're sending them away saying, you go deal with your stuff and come back when you are when you are satisfactory to me, when I can deal with you. And what that teaches a child is, first of all, my emotions are not okay. Who I am as a person isn't acceptable. And so then they come back and they've made a decision. So a young child has you've heard of Mavlov's, law of hierarchy, all that sort of stuff, right? So we have these hierarchy of needs, and for a child, the most important thing is to have a connection, a secure connection with a care provider, because without them, there's no food, there's no safety, there's no, clothing or anything else. They have to have that primary contact. And so, whilst we think that having a secure connection to ourselves and being authentically ourselves is a high need, in a child's uh, situation, it's actually not as high a need as what a secure connection to an adult is. So what the child will do is they'll say, okay, I'll ignore myself and all that there is of me in order to maintain a secure connection with this adult. And I will change who I think I am in order to do that and have that secure connection. And then you have lots of adults who don't even know how to feel their emotions. They don't know how to work through their anger or sit with grief or be uncomfortable or do anything else because they've never been shown how to process those emotions. And then they just bottle it all up and they become sick, or they become angry, or they become people pleasers, and they fawn over everyone. So, different people will do that in different ways, but this is where the cycle begins. Have I
So
answered the question?
I want to ask more because I'm a bit lost here. So what you're saying is we have adults who have no idea how to control their own emotions. They have no idea what buttons are being pushed. And they're running on an operating system that has a lot of conditioning, and there's maybe even trauma to be worked on. And what I am getting from you is that sometimes the child doesn't know how to regulate their emotions because they haven't seen you do it, because maybe they learn by seeing. So they haven't seen you as an example of someone who knows how to deal with cravings, with when things get tough. They look at mommy, they look at daddy, and they're like, I don't know, it's just reaction. So maybe this is the right thing to do. And so they're throwing a tantrum because somebody took their doll away or whatever it is. And as a parent, you're doing what you think is right, which is forcing them to deal with their emotions, but they don't know how to. Then what happens is we're creating trauma for them, and we're showing them that it's not okay to go through, like it's not okay to lose it in front of your parent. We're teaching them that if we want a secure connection with this person, if I want mommy to like me, if I want daddy to like me, I need to be able not to express how I'm feeling. Or I just need to be able to kill a part of me to be in dad's books. Or so they start to learn certain things. This is good, this is bad, and you're like just transferring your operating system to them and then to the children, and then is that kind of what you're saying, or am I missing some things there?
No, you're getting it. You're absolutely getting it. And it begins from very early. Children, there's a law, a universal law called the law of entrainment. And the law of entrainment is actually how emotions are transferred, how energy is regulated within a system. So, okay, so it's when, let's say you stand on a riverbank and there are thousands, you can see a kilometer either side, and there are thousands of fireflies, right, along the river, and they all blink in unison. That's not because they're quickly passing down the line, do it now, right? The law of entrainment says that things want to harmonize, things want to vibe together, they want to be in sync. So when you have a 3-year-old who comes into the kitchen and starts yelling at you that you gave them the green cup and not the blue cup, and they want the blue cup, and you're like, well, the green cup is what I gave you, and it's already dirty, and you're having the green cup because that's what you asked for. What happens is, in the most part, is that the child has set the energy of the room. It's very high. It feels unsafe. That child is dysregulated. And so it's very easy for a parent who doesn't have skills to know how to drop the energy into a safe space. What happens is that adult gets up here with the child, and then they're just feeding off each other, and it's everybody's free for all in this high energy, everybody out of control space. Whereas when we have parents who sit with their children, who hold their baby when their baby's crying instead of leaving them in a cot, when they say, I've got you, you're safe, let me hold you while you deal with that big emotion. Or when it's a teenager who's going through a heartbreak, I've got you and I'm here. When they sit and they have a strong energy of safety, then they can transfer that energy to the child. And it's how the child learns to regulate their emotion. It's not by hearing you, it's by feeling what you're putting out there. And so when you put out this strong, safe, dropped energy, you are then the strongest energy in the room. So if you put a whole bunch of grandfather clocks in a room together, pendulums swinging at different times, you can come back several hours later and they'll all be swinging in unison. The one whose energy was strongest will determine what the beat is. And so that happens in real life. We just don't know it. And it's a universal law, so you can't get around it. It's going to happen. The difference is, do you know how to influence it? Do you know how to be the strongest, safest energy in the room? And I teach this to birth workers. I teach this to mums with newborns. I teach this to mums with 3-year-olds and 9-year-olds and teenage children, because it is a skill you can use for life. If you're an ambulance driver, it's a good skill, right? You want to be able to keep that energy low and dropped and influence those around you rather than be influenced and pummeled by the world around you.
I like where you're going with this. So there is this thing where a parent, are we speaking to mothers? Are we speaking to fathers? Who are we speaking to here? Like,
It's both.
Okay.
Mothers are going to be more involved in the early years, but both play a big part.
Okay, cool. So there's this skill which apparently can take screaming energy and be like, okay, some people have it, some people don't have it. Some people scream back at their kids, and some people say, hey, talk to me, what's going on? If I am that mother who just finds myself screaming at my kid, and then 5 minutes later, I regret it. I'm drowning in guilt. I'm like, how did I get there? If I'm that kind of mother who loses it, and I am wanting to learn the skill of, if my kid comes screaming, this is how I am going to show them what being a mother is. Because when she has kids of her own, she needs to be able to hold space for them. What I'm picking from you is that as a parent, as a mother, I like mothers, let's just talk about mothers. As a parent, as a mother, you have the ability to train your children how to regulate the temperature of the room. As a mother, as a wife, as whichever leader you are, that you have the power to regulate the parents of the temperature of the room, which is really cool. Because in any one situation, if you don't feed the screaming high energy, it just dies. And so how can we tap more into, I think I have that energy, but I don't probably use it. If someone comes at me like screaming, I go, really? What's going on? I do not know how to try and bring them. I won't even try. I'll be like really? Like, why would you scream over that? And I would like to move it more into probably don't even say anything, and the person feels like, why am I screaming? Like, I would like to be someone who says one word and you go, why is she so calm? Like, why is she not in the rooftops? Like, why is she so? Because I feel like I have that energy. Like, for me, the house could be on fire and I will be like, da, 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 passport, da, 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 phone. And like the flame will be there. And I'd be like, I have a passport, I have a phone, and there's no one in danger, we'll be fine. And I walk, pick my passport, walk, pick a phone, maybe even pick a laptop, and move. And everyone else would be jumping the fence. I would just be inside saying, yeah, where are the passports? Where is the phone? We can start from there. But I do not know how to give this to somebody else. I look at people and I'm like, it must be so hard to be you. How can you live through life like this? But I don't know how to like use this to help somebody else. So teach me both ways. If I didn't have that, because I don't know how I got it, versus if I have it, but I still see people around me losing their cool. How do we start to use this power to make the room a better room? Or I don't know if it makes sense. How do we start to create this space where even the person who is like on like the most highest auto can kind of say, oh, there is a better way. And maybe they can learn to, I don't know, to pick up. I don't know. Can they even learn or what? If they're like adult, so
Yes, so it's a very conscious, it can be a conscious decision. So some people do it unconsciously and they live there, so it's all good. And sometimes that's apathy, sometimes it's just a confidence thing. So so some people just do it really easy. They're just chill, they're just chill. And so they don't have this high anxiety or even a normal anxiety, right? So what what we're trying to do here, or what we're actually doing here, is we're dropping the energy from high in our body into the lower parts of our body. And so if you're sitting, it's really connecting with your thighs. So just letting all the energy drop from up here, because we carry a lot of energy in our jaws, in our necks, in our shoulders. Taking a deep breath and just letting it drop into our thighs. Connecting with the chair with our thighs. If we're standing, we just have our feet standing a bit about shoulder width apart, unlock the knees, and just, because when we unlock the knees, there's an immediate engagement, not a clenching, but an engagement of the thighs, the pelvic floor, your glutes, your core, all of those things just engage because your knees are just unlocked. It's not a bending, it's an unlocking. And then we just take that deep breath and just drop it down. And it's not a flop, it's a drop. And you can hear it in my voice, right? And then if we're wanting to impact the rest of the room, we just send that out. So we are creatures of energy. Doesn't matter which way you look at it. Science has proven we are creatures of energy, and everything is energy in motion, right? Every person, everything is energy in motion, and everything's on a frequency. So all you're doing is you're simply saying, this is the frequency that this room is going to be in. This is the safe space. And you call them to you for that. I've got you. And in your head, you don't even have to say anything, but in your head, you can just be, I've got you and you're safe. And they'll feel it. They will absolutely feel it. People say it to me all the time. They're like, I just feel safe talking to you. Yeah, because you are safe, because I've got you. And
so then, Philippa, what we are thinking or how this is working is if a child is 2 or 3 or 4 and they experience that energy, then they learn to feel safe around their emotions and they learn to know that everything can just get normal, like everything will pass. And because they're watching you do it, then they're like, oh, mom did it like this. I guess you pass it on to them. Is that kind of how it's working?
100%. Yeah. So if you have, I'll give you a story. So when my younger sister had her first baby, I'd already had
Mm,
three babies and I was pregnant with my fourth. And she came over one day and she said, she just won't stop crying. She just keeps crying and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, just how about you let me give her a cuddle? And so I took her and I cuddled her and I just held her. And within a minute she was asleep. And my sister just looked at me, and of course, it made her feel even worse. She's like, "What
mm,
am I doing wrong?" I'm like, "You're
mm,
not doing anything wrong. You're just stressed. And baby can feel your stress. I'm not stressed, so baby feels safe.
mm,
We just need to get you to a point where you feel safe and where you feel calm, and then your baby will feel calm. That energy is not is something that we all like. It's like when you walk past a dog, and if you're fearful, the dog knows you're fearful, and if you're calm, the dog knows you're calm, right? It's
mm,
just an energy thing. So what we're doing is we're actually transferring that energy between us, and when we hold them, we're
mm,
actually showing them. We're loaning them our energy. We are giving them some of what we've got to borrow for their own regulation. Because as they're close to us, they simply take on what we've got. So when my 2-year-old, or she's nearly two, my granddaughter, she'll have a little hissy fit about something, and I just pick her up and I hold her and I say, I've got you and you're safe. And I get that it's not that you're not happy about it. It's not fun when we don't get what we want. That does not mean that I give her everything she wants. It doesn't mean
mm,
that I ask her if she wants to go to bed now when it's bedtime. I say it's bedtime and we go to bed. And if she doesn't like it, that's okay. She doesn't have to like it, but I can hold her through her discomfort and
mm,
through her journey. I'm not leaving her to do that alone.
mm. So I like this for babies. Like I can see how this works for babies.
Mhm.
Take me to normal human beings, like a couple. Two mature people, one of them is in your energy, the other one is in the high and low. How does that work? Because I can see how it works for the baby because somehow you have the upper hand with the baby. I don't know if that's how I want to say it, but that's how it's coming for me. Like somehow with the baby, you kind of have this upper hand, or you assumed to know better. You assumed to be the person that is, I don't know, like looking after this person. So how I look at the relationship between parent and child, I don't know, but I don't see how it's equal. I feel like naturally the parent is over here and the child is expected to somehow be guided by the parent. Maybe it's my own programming, but that's how I look at it. So it is very easy for you to take on this assumption that, yeah, I know that I need to help this person feel safe and I'm going to help them through this. And by the end of it all, I want to help them shape their future. But what about a marriage partner? What about a mature person who you have like the same power, who is in the energy of high and low? How does that work if, assuming you had the energy of, it's okay, I think it's too bad, we can go through this. If they have a different experience, how does that work?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter how old the person is. The law of
Mm,
entrainment is happening whether you like it or not, whether you're aware
mm,
of it or not. Children are just very good at responding to it very
mm,
quickly. And I teach
mm,
this to birthing couples and to doulas so that they go into a room together and they
mm,
can hold the energy in a safe space so that mums feels safe enough to give birth, because
mm,
without safety, women experience extraordinarily difficult labors. And it's a lot worse than it needs to be because they don't feel safe
mm,
inherently. And if you get somebody who comes in the room with a high energy, I want to train every other person in that room to hold the energy low so that
mm.
that other person can't impact, so that the woman is protected by this dropped energy. Now,
Mm,
and it works. And it can take time. It doesn't happen like that, but it's going to happen. Given enough time, it will happen. And so you'll see it's like it's it's like when you said it before, if you don't feed the fire, it doesn't keep growing, right? So
Mm,
sometimes when we simply drop our energy, hold our space, and allow the other person to do what they've got to do, but be strong and provide that safety, then we can then they'll come to us eventually, or they'll come to that energy. It just happens, and then we can't stop it. There is no way to stop it. It's going to happen. Whoever's strongest wins in that
mm,
energy field. And most people aren't consciously aware of it. So if you're consciously aware of it and you can hold it consciously,
mm,
and I teach in my 5 Minute Miracle, so I have a little product called the 5 Minute Miracle. In that one, I teach people how to train their conscious brain and therefore their unconscious brain to really sit in the space when they're, make choices about what it is that they're seeing going on around them that allows them to stay in that dropped energy rather than be coerced by behavior
mm,
into another energy. Mm.
it's really good. How, as a person that is in that energy, do you stay away from being pulled the other way? I think I have consciousness around this energy, but sometimes I don't know how to not get pulled away by the other person who I think that's ridiculous. Like, why would you say that? Why would you do that? And I can feel that I'm not helping them.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, if I just sit there still, I'm thinking, this can't possibly be helpful because I think that a part of me is going, really, that can get better. Like, this behavior here can get better. And I think that me trying to say that to show them that it can get better doesn't help. But what does help is if I hold my space and stay in my energy and let them go on. But I think it can be so hard for especially people who are married if the other person stays in that state. And this person has to just keep receiving, receiving. I think at some point it can get challenged, especially if the person is expected to either grow or learn to cope, or I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah, so we all have to take responsibility for our own behavior as well. And
Mm,
obviously, we can teach this skill to other people. And if you're with a life partner, I would suggest that you teach that. If you're at the supermarket and somebody's, having a hissy fit, well, it's not
mm,
your job to do that, but you can at least, keep your energy low and strong so that the people around you feel safe.
mm,
And so that that person ultimately doesn't have an impact on you, because what we're trying to do here as much as anything else is protect ourselves. When you're dealing with
mm,
another adult as well, it's about protecting your own energy rather than taking on their stuff. And Judith Richards has an incredible process, and she talks, one of the things she talks you through is this idea of I choose to know. So we
mm,
can say affirmations, and affirmations are lovely, but I can look in the mirror and say, I am smart. And my conscious
mm,
brain and my unconscious brain go, no, you're not. You went to the grocery store yesterday and you forgot 7 things and you had your list with you. That's not what smart people do, right? Or I can say, I choose to know I am smart.
mm,
Now, that's me making a conscious choice despite whatever evidence there is to the contrary. It's not about me feeling it. It's not about me believing it. It's about me choosing to know that it's true anyway. So if I say, and I use this one a lot with my kids in my house, right? Because I've got
mm,
teenage daughters who
mm,
sometimes will come home from school and something's happened at school, but they will come at me. Their first instinct might be to just let loose because they're neurodivergent, and they might just let me have it. And so in my house, one of my things is I'll say to myself, I choose to know that's actually not about me. That's about whatever happened for her today. And that shifts me from a place of feeling attacked and being defensive to how do I parent her through that today? How do I love her through what she's going through, even if she's chosen to let fly on me? Is that appropriate? No. If I tell her that it's not appropriate right now, am I going to get through to her? No. What if I just love her for a minute, choose to know that it's not about me, it's about her? How can I help her? And then later I can say, you know, when you come home like that, you don't have to let loose on me because I love you and I'll be here either way. So I get to teach her after I've loved her and after I've connected. Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld talk about the idea of connection before correction, connection before anything. First, connect. If you have a child jumping on a couch, they're jumping on the couch not to annoy you, but because they want to have fun. So if you go in there yelling, get off the couch, stop jumping on the couch, what are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to break the couch. What are you doing? You're shutting them down. They just shut down. Whereas if you say, buddy, I can see that you are looking for a way to have fun right now. Is that right? You've connected. You've seen his intention to have fun. Can I suggest a safer way to have fun? Let's go outside and we'll kick a ball around. Right? So what you're doing is you're connecting, allowing, because when you connect, they hear you. Connection. So I talk about this all the time, particularly with parents who are struggling with teen behavior, because teen behavior is often a point at which in our own parenting lives, we were told that we either have to shape up or ship out. Right. And so there's this idea that if we can start to disconnect because they're teenagers, and we can start to say, no, that's it, we're not doing this anymore, you know, that behavior is completely unacceptable, and I won't allow it in my home. You follow my rules or you're out. And so, but what happens in that moment is when we lose connection, we lose all capacity to be their anchor. We lose all capacity to influence. If you haven't got relationship, you don't have influence. If you don't have respect, you don't have influence. If you don't have influence over a teenager or a young adult, you have nothing. You have nothing. Because they are going to make all sorts of stupid decisions, just like adults do. They're just doing it without a fully developed, you know, front brain, right? So,
I really like the part where you said connection before correction. That's very important because I'm not looking at it in terms of children, because I think that in terms of children, because somehow where you have an upper hand as a parent, I just think or imagine that as a parent you have an upper hand on the child. So all of this is within your interest to help shape up your child. But now I'm looking at like equals, people who are equal, people who have the same power. And I like when you say connection before correction, because a lot of what can happen is you jump into defensive mode and you start correcting before connecting. But if you do that, they do not feel safe, so they keep going and they have no limits. And at one point, it will be you to go, hold on, no, I'm not doing this. It will be you to snap back, because I think that personally I have a meter. If I'm in any kind of involvement, conversation, and it hits beyond a certain point, my body says, stop. This is not you, stop. So if I am somehow involved in any argument beyond a certain point, my body pulls away and says, nope, we're not going to give you breath. Just get out of that. It feels very toxic and very not necessary for me. Like I feel like nothing is worth it to that extent. But what you're saying is you can decide to see it as there's no point in me airing my concerns. There's no point in me correcting this behavior right now. What is important is the question, how can I love them through this moment? Because through this moment, it's really maybe a behavior that is cropping out of their subconscious. So how can I love them through this moment, make them feel safe? And once they've calibrated back, now I can say, hey, you know what, dude, our behavior is really not okay. And in that moment, they can see where you're coming from, and maybe they can correct the behavior, because now you're speaking to their actual conscious mind. You're now giving them power to see where they can change. I think this is a mistake of mine. Someone comes to me in that mode, I go, hey, I try to correct. So I'm like, hey, let's not, like, why do we have to get there? But then I'm correcting in a place where I have no connection. So it doesn't work because I have missed a very important piece, which is connection before correction. I think that's very big for me personally. I feel like it's like, what do you think? I feel like that is very important, whether you're a parent, whether you're like a reception and someone is losing their head, of like, you can really love them through the moment. And once they have come back to normal, you can go, hey, you remember yesterday when this thing happened? I have some things to say about how we can be better friends, parents, whatever. And I just didn't think that was the right moment. Can I share now? I'd be like, sure. And that can really give you what you want if you deliver it in the right time. That's how I'm picking this. Is that what you are trying to teach us? Or did I just make a lesson of my own?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's, we as adults need to learn how to regulate ourselves first, and we need to learn what's most important. And a lot of this comes back to simply not even understanding our minds. We don't understand how the brain works. We don't understand what part of our brain we're in given different circumstances. And that's because most of us are living from a space of being very primitive. Our prefrontal cortex, this neocortex up here, which is our what we would call our modern brain, or our higher thinking brain, it's actually not working as much of the time as what our primal brain is. And so most things are happening in the background, especially when we are stressed out and working, like if we don't have balance in our life, we're going to sit in that primal brain a lot, right? And it's going to direct most of our behaviors, and it's certainly going to direct most of our autonomic or automatic behaviors, right? And automatic behaviors are what happens when somebody bumps you in the supermarket and you spill your coffee all over you, right? What's the first thing that comes to your head? How does your body respond? That's going to be what's on the inside. So what we're doing with therapy work, particularly what we do with TRTP, is we're actually taking that, what's on the inside, what's all of this stuff that is sitting there waiting to come out. How do we heal that? How do we change the scripting and put in a new operating system? So you said it before, we've got these operating systems which are clunky and old, and they are not even the ones we would choose for ourselves. So let me put it like this. If you were a phone and you're a nice new iPhone, right? And your operating system was given to you by your parents and they had a Nokia 3110, right? Now they chose the operating system and they put it in this. Is that what you chose? No. Would you like to have the latest iOS? Probably, right? And would your software work better? Would your hardware work better because of the different software? Yes. So what we're doing with TRTP is we're upgrading your software from what your parents gave you, because and what you assumed was safe for you as a child, versus what you choose as an adult to know is true, because it is because you've had different life experiences that can, or you want to make different conscious choices moving forward.
So, because where my head goes is, well, my great-grandfather had an environment which had no internet. Yep. And then as we came down to the generations, my mom possibly had a phone but didn't know social media or whatever. Now, where the world is, we will not use that Nokia software into the iPhone world now, where everything is moving and everyone has an opinion and social media is all over the place and every phone is having internet on it and the kids are exposed to all this, like we need a different operating system to help our children grow in today's society. And I am not a parent, but I can see what you mean. Like the operating system that helped you survive may not help your children survive because we're living in a different type of world. Things work differently, and we need a different operating system to thrive, survive, and help our children. I think I really love your concept today. What is it that we have missed out that is so crucial to the work you do that if we ended this conversation without touching it, that you would go, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't talk about that?
I think it's a couple of things. It's partly we have to do our own work, right? We know that trauma is passed down from generation to generation in our DNA, and we are in the old days we had periods of stress and we had periods of calm, and we live in this current world in a state of almost intense stress all the time. And so we didn't grow up, we're not growing up the way our grandparents did and their grandparents did. And so we need to do our own work in terms of turning off that DNA trauma. And that's crucial. We need to do our own work if we're going to stop the next generation from experiencing that trauma. And the second piece is that be intentional in your parenting. Too many times we get pregnant, we go have a baby, and sometimes we're really intentional about how we birth the baby and how we feed the baby, and there's a bunch of things there. But as soon as that child hits 2 or 3, all of a sudden we have all our best intentions go out the window because we haven't done the work on ourselves, and we're operating from our primal brain, and we don't have the skills to parent in a way that is connection before correction, that is relationship based. How do I want my relationship to look with my child after this interaction? If you can think about that one question before you act and react and respond from a place of, if I do this, will my relationship with my child be stronger or weakened? And we can parent, we don't have to be permissive parents in order to parent from relationship, because a child can hear no and still know he's loved and still know he's safe, right? But a child can hear yes and not know he's loved and safe.
I really like that piece. Connection before correction. Before we discipline the child, before we tell people what's wrong with them, before we tell people how to get better, I've created a space for them to be loved in the moment where they need it. Have we helped them calculate their nervous system? Like, have we held the space they need to feel loved and seen through who they are and all their traumas? And then maybe waited for the right time to say, you know what, I love you, but I do believe we can improve in this area. Yesterday, can you hold into whatever the thing is that you want to help them with and prioritize the connection? What I'm thinking also in my brain is the parenting is a relationship. Marriage is a relationship. I feel like relationships show you the work that needs to be done. Like they challenge you to discover the work that needs to be done. So if you find that it's extremely hard for you to be with other people in relationships, it's extremely hard for you to figure out what's happening with the kids, I think the answer is it's pointing at the work that needs to be done. The less work that you've done or the more work that you need to do, the more frustrating it will be, I think, to be in any kind of relationship, whether that's with your parents or whether that's with your children or with your spouse. I think the undone work will just make it harder, or will just be unhealthy. You will give in, you will people please, kids will throw you around, like people will just walk over you, or you always be in this battle. Like I can see what this work does. And I do not know if I am in the position to wrap it up. I want to invite you to wrap it up. Like, what is it that we need to understand in order to increase our experiences as parents or spouses? Because for me, I see it as a relationship element as opposed to this is for children and parents. I think it's a relationship element in whatever context it is. How would you wrap up this conversation of ours? I really loved having this conversation. I think it will help people.
Yeah, look, I think you actually nailed it really well, Prima. The fact of the matter is, and relationships or having children is like having this mirror held up to us. And they're very accurate mirrors because they don't mask very well in those early years. So everything that we don't like about ourselves or everything that we hold pain for in our past is going to be shown up in front of us. But there's a huge fallout from that. So, you know, relationships, and part of this is not doing the work, but the parent relationship. So 40% of marriages in the Western world, 40% of marriages will break down in the first year of having a baby, and 50% within 5 years of the birth of the first baby. Now, that says to me that there is a huge issue, not just with parenting, but as you say, with the ability to be in relationship when we are mirrored back to ourselves. And sometimes and as adults, when we're in a marriage, we're often very good at masking or people pleasing or, you know, putting our own needs aside. It might be that we will just accept that for, you know, in that person. But we're usually not as stressed and as strained as what we are once we become sleep deprived. We've got, you know, body parts that hurt and all the other bits and pieces, and we're touched out and all of those things that happen in the aftermath of having a child. You're on the bones of your bum. You are so tired and you are so you know, it's such a new journey, those first few years, that those relationships that we have with others, all of a sudden we stop accepting, we stop just loving, we stop accepting, we stop masking, and all of a sudden those relationships become hugely, we can see all the flaws all of a sudden because we have no patience anymore with all of that. And so I think you really did nail it. If you want to be a parent who can look at their 25-year-old and say, I love that person and they love me, and we don't get it right all the time, but we've got each other's back and we know who each other are. If you want to be that kind of parent, you need to be okay to look at yourself and do the hard work. Do the real work that says, who do I need to be able to raise that kind of human? And then do the work. Don't just look at it, do the work. It's not easy and it's going to take time. And you're going to be learning forever. I make mistakes. We all do. But own that. Own that. And show up anyway.
I like this. Because when you're married or don't have a child, or you still can mask. You still can pretend. But when you're emotionally capped out, you haven't slept in days, and there's literally a small human being that relies on you to live. I have a client who calls her business the so done mouth. A stage when you're depleted, done, and you've reached the limit of your tolerance. When you're in that moment, you just have no option but to just, you drop everything else because you just can't hold it. And the real you comes out and things break. I really love that. I love that. Where are you? For example, when someone is saying, I would love to learn more, like tap in more, I am that parent. Philippa, I would like to know more about this work. For example, what is the best place for them to go if they're thinking,
they can find, so the website probably gives you everything you need, either philippascott.com, but it's hard to spell Philippa, it's 1 L 2 P's, or fantasticfuture.com. .com.au, and all of my socials, all my blogs, all my podcasts, everything is listed in those in that space. And I think you've got a great link too that gives them all sorts of bits and pieces from me. My book, I have a fabulous new book, all the things.
That's Philippa for you, philippascott.com. Philippa is a PHILIPPA. Scott is SCOTT. It's a very tricky name to spell, all right. But she also has fantastic what?
Fantasticfuture.com.au.
I think Fantastic Future may be easier.com.
Yeah.
And we'll try and link the places where you can find Philippa. It's been such an honor. I have learned a lot, both for when I become a parent or even for my own life today. I've learned a lot from Philippa. Philippa, what would you say are your final words of wisdom for us?
You are enough as a parent, whether you've done the work yet or not. The very fact that you are choosing to listen and that you want to do better means you are enough.
That's how we're ending with this. So thank you for being part of this conversation. If you know someone that needs to hear this, if you know someone this would be a life-changing moment for, if they listen to this conversation, now is your invitation to press share and drop the link in their either messages or WhatsApp, or however you communicate to them, and say, hey, I listened to this and I really thought about you. Now is your time to share this with just one person, because the way that things work on this podcast is you listen to it, changes your life, you share it with one person whose life gets changed, they share it with another person, and hopefully that is something that can help Philippa's work get known and no longer be a secret, so that more people can be touched, so the world can be made a better place. We can put the best marketing behind all of these things, but the most effective way to spread a message that can change lives is when we use our hands to say, I love this message, I want to move it. Like, you are the best advertising that Philippa can ever have. So if this changed your life like it has, if this was very impactful for you, like it has for me, please share it with just one person that you think, wow, wait, this person could use a piece in, their parenting, in their relationship journey. I honestly think that this is necessary for couples. I think that it is necessary for parents, but I think in any kind of relationship that this is really helpful. That's it for today. I hope it was helpful to you. If you are a best kept secret and you're watching going, I need to share my message too, look for my website. Look for me. I'm on social media. primajob.com is my website. Look around. There's ways for you to come as well. Sit, grab the microphone and share your message. But most importantly, if this is the kind of work that you know you need, check out the links. Go to philippascott.com or check the show notes and dive in. Get in touch with Philippa and begin doing the work. It's been such an honor to have you on the show, Philippa. And thank you so much, you who is on the listening side, for your part of this. I really cannot do this without you, in all honesty. So I honor you and appreciate you for sharing the message. And I'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining this conversation on the World's Best Kept Secret podcast today. If you feel ready to stop keeping your work a secret, head over to primajob.com and request a free conversation. Until next time, please remember that there's no prize in keeping your work a secret.